Red Delicious. The Red Delicious is the most purchased apple in American history and also one of the most disappointing things you can put in your mouth. It looks incredible. Deep red, five-pointed base, almost architectural. Grocery stores loved it. Farmers loved it. Consumers bought it in enormous quantities, bit into it, and wondered what went wrong. What went wrong was intentional. For decades, growers selectively bred Red Delicious to look better on a shelf and survive longer in a truck. Thicker skin, firmer flesh, more red. The flavor, which was once genuinely good when Jesse Hyatt discovered the original seedling in Iowa in the 1870s, got stripped out along the way. Nobody in the breeding process stopped to ask whether it still tasted like anything, because nobody was getting paid to ask that question. The result is the apple equivalent of a movie poster for a film that is 2.5 hours of people staring at parking lots. You can still find a decent Red Delicious if it's properly ripened. Light floral, melon-like, crisp, but statistically you won't. Honeycrisp. The Honeycrisp almost didn't exist. Researchers at the University of Minnesota made the original cross in 1960, lost the records, assumed it had failed, and nearly threw out the seedling entirely. It sat quietly in a test orchard, while everyone paid attention to other more promising-looking trees. When they finally got around to tasting it, they had a problem on their hands, specifically the kind of problem where something is so good that you have to completely restructure your expectations. The cells in a Honeycrisp are physically larger than in most other apples. When you bite in, they burst instead of compress, releasing juice and a crunch loud enough to concern people nearby. At its commercial peak, Honeycrisp was selling for 3 to 4 times the price of standard apples. The patent has since expired, meaning anyone can grow it. But it's a difficult, temperamental tree, and the premium price has mostly held. It is, in short, the apple that finally made people realize they had been settling. Hidden Rose. From the outside, the Hidden Rose looks like nothing special. Pale, yellow-green skin, a little unremarkable, easy to walk past entirely. This is exactly what it wants you to do because the inside is bright red and pink, vivid, almost shocking. And the flavor hits like strawberry lemonade cut with something slightly citrusy and sharp. It was discovered by accident on a farm in Oregon, which is where the best apple stories seem to happen. The flavor profile is genuinely unusual for an apple. Sweet, but with a tang that actually finishes clean, rather than fading into the chalky sweetness that ruins a lot of modern cultivars. You won't find it in most grocery stores. It doesn't travel well, the trees are difficult, and the yield is inconsistent. It exists almost entirely at farmers' markets and specialty orchards, which means most people will never eat one, which is both a shame and arguably good for its reputation. Granny Smith. Maria Ann Smith was an older woman in New South Wales, Australia, who found a small tree growing in a pile of compost in the 1860s. She didn't plant it there. It just appeared, likely from seeds she'd thrown out from a French crabapple. She tasted it, decided it was useful, and started propagating it herself. She did not live to see it become one of the 5 most widely grown apple varieties on Earth. The acidity is almost aggressive, sharp, citrusy, very little sweetness, which is unusual enough that many people either love it completely or want nothing to do with it. It's also the apple least likely to brown after cutting, because the same high acid that makes it tart is also what keeps the flesh from oxidizing quickly. This is why it shows up on every fruit platter and charcuterie board, regardless of whether anyone particularly wanted it there. Tsu. Japan developed this one in the 1930s, a cross between Golden Delicious and an apple called Indo, and it goes by 2 names depending on where you are. In Japan, it's Mutsu, named after a province. In Europe and North America, it's often sold as Crispin, which sounds like someone's grandfather and is somehow both accurate and charming. In Japan, it was nicknamed the $1 Million Apple, which tells you something about how the country approaches fruit presentation. It's large, noticeably so, with yellow-green skin and a flesh that is creamy, very juicy, and holds up for months in proper storage without losing its texture. The flavor balances honey sweetness with a mild tartness in a way that's genuinely more complex than most people expect from something that looks like a green Golden Delicious. It's one of the better-kept secrets in the apple world, largely because the name situation has confused everyone for 50 years. Arkansas Black. This apple will not negotiate with you. Freshly picked in late October, it is dense, extremely firm, genuinely hard in a way that surprises people. Sharp, astringent, and not particularly pleasant to eat, the skin is so dark it looks almost lacquered, like someone finished it with a brush. What makes Arkansas Black interesting is what happens after harvest. Left in a cool cellar from October through January or February, something shifts. The tannins mellow. The acidity softens. The flavor develops into something with notes of anise, dark cherry, spice, and faint wine. It essentially ages like cheese, building character through controlled breakdown rather than declining into mush like most apples do. Moth infestations and the Great Depression nearly wiped it out entirely. It survived, and is now kept alive by chefs, cider makers, and people who have figured out that some things are worth waiting for. Pierre Etoile cut this apple in half horizontally and the cross-section is shaped like a star. That's not a metaphor. The ovaries of the fruit form the 5 rounded points, giving it a shape that looks almost deliberate, like someone sat down and designed it. In France, where it originated in the 1600s, it was known as the Christmas apple, small, elegant, yellow, to bright red depending on sun exposure, eaten more as an occasion than a meal. The flavor is mild and sweet, with a crisp, fine-grained texture and a very subtle almond quality. It's a specialty orchard fruit now, preserved more out of affection than commercial demand, which is probably the best possible outcome for an apple that looks like a Christmas ornament and has been doing so for 4 centuries. Fuji. Japan created this one in the 1930s as well. They were busy, crossing 2 American varieties, R.S. Janet and Red Delicious, to produce something significantly better than either parent. When it launched commercially in 1962, they named it after the town of Fujisaki. Western markets assumed it was named after the mountain. Nobody corrected anyone. The Fuji can develop something called water core. Sections of the flesh fill with sorbitol, a sugar, making the apple look slightly translucent and taste intensely sweet, close to honey. Some growers consider this a flaw because it shortens storage life. Others consider it the whole point. In Japan, individual Fuji apples are wrapped in paper bags while still on the tree to protect them from insects and UV damage. A perfectly cultivated Japanese Fuji, gift-boxed and sold at a department store, can cost the equivalent of several dollars per apple. In an American grocery store, you'll pay maybe $1.20 and receive something that is still, by any reasonable measure, an excellent apple. Cosmic Crisp. Washington State University spent 22 years developing this apple. It was released to consumers in 2019 after 2 decades of breeding, testing, selecting, and presumably a great deal of waiting around. The name comes from its appearance. Deep red skin with small yellow lenticels scattered across the surface that look, if you're in the right mood, like stars. It is a cross between Honeycrisp and Enterprise, which means it inherited Honeycrisp's textural drama and added genuine disease resistance and a shelf life that makes every other apple look careless. In a refrigerator, it holds its texture and flavor for up to a year. It also resists browning after cutting, which is either impressive engineering or unsettling depending on your relationship to fruit chemistry. Washington growers had exclusive rights to grow it for the first several years. By the time those restrictions opened up, demand had already been established. It is the most commercially successful new apple variety in decades. 22 years of research, landing on a product that mostly just works, which, in the apple world, is rarer than it sounds.